Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course, and it's called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Joana Melo, and she is a postdoctoral researcher in engineering education. She's keen on finding out how languages and cultures influence engineering students' learning. She also helps engineering students overcome their fear of public speaking. I'm interested to learn more about how she got into engineering education research and where her interest in public speaking for engineers came from. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Joana.
Hi, Neil. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Wonderful. So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you got your undergraduate degree in chemical engineering. So what was the motivation to get that degree?
Well, I really started I think it was ninth grade or something, that I saw my teacher moving stuff in the lab and changing colors within liquids. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So I studied and I ended up doing chemical engineering.
Oh, wow. Is that simple, huh?
Yeah.
But then you didn't stop there. So I saw you also got a PhD. So what was the motivation for that?
I always like to study. I found myself always being super curious about everything. And I always reading, I always finding something new to study. So when I was living in Europe and studying in Europe, and then me and my family, we decided moving to the US. And it was very hard for me because we were in a small town to find a job, like getting a visa and all this complicated stuff. So I ended up looking for PhDs, and I find one because I was interested in energy by the time. So I find a PhD in architectural engineering at Penn State, and I end up doing that PhD there.
Architectural engineering. What exactly does that entail?
So architectural engineering is kind of a mix of different types of engineering. So I was doing the option of the mechanical option, and then mostly study everything related with building systems, HVAC, air conditionings, all these calculations. And it related with energy, that was the part that I studied. But they always study structural engineering, they also study lighting engineering, and also construction management. So it's a mix of different things that involve the building.
Okay. So then you eventually, so you do that. So you got a degree in chemical engineering, then you get your PhD, and then you decide to do a postdoc in engineering education. Is there a reason you decided to do a postdoc in such a, I don't want to say a non-technical field because it's still under engineering, but typically, from what I understand, people do postdocs in, I guess more technical type of fields, but you decided to do it more in engineering education. What was the motivation for that?
Yeah, so when I was studying, I was like all the PhD students, and at any point you are going to do some teaching relating stuff. So I was a teaching assistant, and I really enjoyed understanding how the students thought. And I had some kind of students coming to my office and say, "Oh, I don't understand this." So I was helping them getting through the problems. And the areas that I was teaching, it was related with energy. So I really enjoyed teaching that to them. And when I was working through my dissertation, I was thinking, these machines, this can get very lonely. I miss studying all these nuts and bolts and numbers. I really miss the human connection. So I met one person, and she was starting a program in engineering education. And she said, "Oh, did you hear about engineering education?" "No, I don't know what that is. Is that a field of study?" So she explained to me what it was. So I ended up collaborating in her lab. I did one paper with her. And then when I was doing my defense, I was very interested in the human side. Although I was doing very technical stuff, mechanical stuff, I was thinking, oh, so how can I get people to be more involved with this? How can people measure better? If you need to, I don't know, to measure in the snow, how do people reach there, and how they can be comfortable with that? And this person was in my committee and said, you are asking questions all about the human factor, although you are teaching something related to mechanical engineering. So in the end, I was thinking, maybe I should do something related with the engineering education stuff. And in the meanwhile, the the postdoc came along, and they were looking for somebody that had a background in chemical engineering, and they also could understand the part of engineering education. And here I am doing a postdoc in engineering education.
Wow. So what exactly, so I know I spoke a little bit about what your research entails. I guess what do you hope the outcome of your research leads to?
So the research group that I'm in, they are focused on the inclusive engineering. So what we are researching and what we all think is that our diverse factors lead up to a better engineering. So you have a team that is very diverse. We all can bring different ideas, and the outcome is much better. And that is what we are studying. And my personal look, because I'm international, I'm looking at what language and culture can influence how you see yourself as an engineer. So we studied what they call engineering identity. Is that how you feel as an engineer? When you start an engineering program, do you feel like an engineer? Do your peers see you like an engineer? Do your parents see you like an engineer? That's something that we like to think about. And in my case, I'm thinking, okay, my first language is not English, but my kid is English. Is that going to influence his choice in his career? And if he's going to be an engineer, it will be different than his peers that his parents are speaking English. So that's one thing that I'm looking into, and I'm really enjoying that.
Wow. What have you, I know this is something that's ongoing, but do you have any, I guess, preliminary results on the answers to the questions that you're looking at?
Yes. So in my research group, they have a survey, and we have almost 3,000 answers for the survey, and this is for first year engineering students across big institutions in the United States. And the first results that I have is that the students that don't have English at home as their primary language, they feel less recognized as an engineer than their peers. So, and then we researched some with some interviews, and we just found out that is really an impact. So students, when they arrive in the United States, and I'm an example of that, that they feel less recognized because of different in language, because of different in system. So that is a very interesting, and we are trying to expand that and to see other types of differences with intersectionality. So if it changes by gender, or if it's changing by race, or even other constructs that we might have available to study.
Interesting. So if the people whose first language isn't English to feel less recognized in engineering, what can others do to make them feel more recognized?
The idea is that we, as educators, make more inclusive practice in the classroom to have this, having their voices heard, but also understanding where they come from. Why are these differences, and getting more involved. And we are trying, and here at Purdue, they are studying very much the teams, how to work on teams. And that is very interesting, how they are researching how the diverse teams can also bring better outcomes. So that's one way you can see it. If you work with teams in your classrooms, then you can get all the students involved, and you can see their differences and make them more recognized, I hope.
Okay, yeah, it seems to be something that's pretty, I guess, current. And you hear a whole lot of talk about increasing diversity within companies and more specifically teams. And I know that maybe perhaps this isn't something that you touch on in your research, but I often hear that maybe this is also a case for the people whose first language isn't English. Is there is there an issue with retaining these type of people in engineering as well, or is that something that you look at?
Well, I didn't look at that. I read a couple of papers on that, and that's exactly the reason why my group is studying that, because we are trying to see how we can retain more students that feel less recognized as the engineers, that don't belong in engineering, and that is a struggle. And for now, most of the results you see, the impact is by race and gender, but I imagine that the language and culture will have an impact as well.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, this is pretty interesting stuff. I'm glad that you're looking at this type of thing. I also mentioned in the intro that you are really keen on helping engineers with their public speaking as well. So where did the interest in that even come from?
Well, I like to speak a lot, but I am an introvert at first sight. So when I meet somebody, I'm not the person who is going to speak up. And when I arrived to the US, that was a bit of a challenge because you go to the classroom and everybody speaks up, and I had to force myself. So I was thinking, how can I improve that? And another factor, it was when I was attending presentations, specifically science presentations. Most times I felt bored. I felt why are these slides so long? I can read the papers. Why am I? I imagine by a reaction you felt the same as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I end up taking trying to improve and trying to find out why these public speakers doing like these TED talks and all how they do this. So I start researching a little bit how to make better presentations. And the key point here that I think it changed my mindset is that don't focus on me, focus on the audience. Because I know what I'm going to speak, but does the audience understand what I do? And sometimes it's very hard because you don't know what was going to be in the audience, what is the level of their understanding. So usually I take a step back and I try to go a little bit like the bigger picture first. So if somebody doesn't understand it, at least they can follow up a little bit. And that is what I do, what I like to do personally. But you also need to figure out, some people will get bored of that. So you need to interact with the audience and ask questions. And well, I like to use humor. So I think it's a nice thing to engage people. But, and you also have to accept that not everybody is going to like your presentations. And then if you can deal with that, then that is a good thing. So when I was looking for different things to do. So during the PhD, I informally advised some peers. So I went to their talks and I gave advice like, oh, too much text, I'm feeling asleep, or can you just stop pacing so much, or can you just breathe in, just relax. And one thing that I always say, and I still do that sometimes, I speak with PhD students now, I said, you did the work, you know it better than anybody else, even than your advisor, because you were the one that spent 4 or 5 even more years doing your research. So you do it, you know what you do better than anybody else. So now you need to take a step back, breathe in, and explain as simple as possible. And that's what I think about the presentation. So personally, what I did, I enrolled in Toastmasters probably like about 2 years ago. I enrolled in Toastmasters, and I thought it was really helpful for taking the fear away, because yeah, the fear of public speaking, I think it happens with almost everybody at some point in time. And I think Toastmasters is such a supportive community that I really enjoy going there and speaking, and they teach you tips like, okay, you should practice. Here's how you should think about, if you have this many minutes, you should prepare this way. How you can breathe, how you can pace or not pace, and I'm learning still these things, and I think I will never be as perfect as I want to be. I think nobody does, I imagine, but I think it's, you just start to be aware of yourself, and that's what I like. On the presentation itself, I'm looking into some people, and I think you also look into some of the people I do, but like one of the person that I really like to follow is Dr. Echo Rivera. That's how I started to think about differently about how to put stuff on my PowerPoints, for example, and not make everybody what does she say, like death by PowerPoint. She wants to end death by PowerPoint. I really like that. I really think it's a good idea. So those are the two things. Like one is the presentation, and the other is the public speaking itself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Joanna. Especially, I remember going to conferences when I worked as an engineer, and I mean, if you're looking to fall asleep, that's the perfect place to go to a conference talk, because if don't go there drowsy, you got to go there with coffee, you got to go there with energy drink, something. Because if you just sit down there just regular, you most likely will fall asleep. It's almost a given. But yeah, it's a lot of just all the things that you mentioned are issues. Even death by PowerPoint. Yeah, people will get up there and read off the PowerPoint slides, and they'll never look at the audience. And then, is it really all that? I guess surprising that people are now on their phones or falling asleep and they're not paying attention to what you're saying. And then essentially, you've wasted your time in putting your presentation together. The audience isn't really paying attention, so they're wasting their time. It's just a waste of time all around. So I commend you for the work that you do in seeing that there was this issue and that you're trying to address it with the engineering students. So kudos to you. So another thing that I just wanted to ask is, in terms of your own public speaking, are there certain, I guess, topics that you like speaking on? And if so, what are they?
I really like to speak about presentations. That's something that I found out lately. But I think I don't have one specific topic. I think I like to help people in general. So if I find a topic that I can learn and I can help others, I will do it. And right now, because I really enjoy my research, I like to speak about it. Of course, I think it's because I'm so immersed on it. But yeah, you saw. I think you saw my presentation in the Society of Women Engineers, and yeah, I want to help others just being better, and especially now with the job market so bad, I thought, oh, that's a good idea if I can give some hints that people just change their mindset about how to present themselves. So I think I like to do things in general, nothing really in particular, if I can say that.
Wonderful. When it comes to the presentations that you do, is there or do you follow a process to put them together? And if so, what is it?
I usually do an outline. That's my first process that I do. I do an outline of what I want to speak. I don't follow slide numbers. I think that's not how you should do it. I think you can have as many slides as you want, as long as you don't have any, as long as you have time in consideration. And one thing that I do after I put my slides together, I practice several times. I practice out loud. Sometimes I record myself. It depends on the importance of if I have to record it, then is even better. But I time and I practice maybe 3, maybe 4 times. It depends on how much time I have. If I know in advance that I'm going to have a presentation, I start maybe a couple months before, just first time, like half an hour, just to draft the idea, do the outline. If I have thought process in the shower, so I kind of take a longer shower and visualize what I say. Yeah, I think that's mostly, but practice. That's what I would recommend everybody.
Yeah, for
Practice
sure.
makes perfect.
Yeah, practice. Yeah, practice is certainly helpful, and it shows respect to the audience, because you with practice, you at least you should have figured out perhaps the best way to present, and what part of the presentation should go first, what should go second, what should go last. And by putting in that kind of, I guess, effort in your preparation, I think the audience benefits, and they appreciate the fact that you went that extra mile. It's as opposed to people that just get up there and wing it, and it kind of goes all over the place. Maybe it's even difficult to follow, and then they end up falling asleep and getting on their phones again. So and you definitely don't want that. When it comes also to your presentations, do you ever get nervous? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Yeah, I totally agree.
And then when it comes to getting nervous, do you ever get nervous before presentations? And how do you deal with your nerves if you do?
Well, I get nervous all the time. So, but I try to, if I practice, it's much easier because I can get excited what, about everything I know. So that makes it easy. I drink a lot of water before I think hydrating, it helps also to make me fresh. And I try to breathe and to say to myself, you know what you're going to do. But I always have nerve, and I think nerves help you to stay on track and to just not drift away a little bit, enough.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that if you're not nervous before a presentation, it's probably because you don't really care about the presentation to begin with. And because if you're nervous, it shows that you actually care about what the audience is going to get out of it. So I don't necessarily see nerves as a bad thing. It's just you don't want to get to the point where you're so nervous that you can't even talk and you're shaking all over the place. You want to be able to manage it. So that's really important. It's
Yeah.
been great talking to you, Joanna. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about things that you're working on?
Well, at this point, I really appreciate that you invite me to this. I see your videos regularly and they are really, really interesting. So I'm following tips as well. So that's great. And if you need anything from me, any help with anything, or if anybody that sees this video needs some tips or something, just feel free to look me up. I'm on LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn by my name. Joana Melo is the name on LinkedIn, and I'm always glad to give a tip or two to people that need some help.
Wonderful. Well, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course, and it's called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Joanna.